I want to tell you something that may change the way you live the rest of your life. The greatest prison in the world is not made of steel. It has no walls, no guards, no locks. And yet millions of people spend their entire lives trapped inside it. That prison is overthinking. Every dream you've ever admired, every successful person you've ever respected, every extraordinary life you've ever wished you had, began with one thing that looked completely ordinary. A single action, not a perfect plan, not perfect confidence, not perfect timing, just one step. Let me ask you something. How many times have you said, "I'll start tomorrow"? How many books have you planned to read? How many businesses have you imagined building? How many conversations have you rehearsed but never had? How many opportunities have quietly disappeared while you were still thinking about whether you were ready? Here's what most people don't understand. Success does not belong to the smartest people. It belongs to the people who move before certainty arrives, because certainty never arrives. You don't become confident and then act. You act, and confidence slowly introduces itself. Years ago, I learned something from an elderly farmer. He wasn't famous. He wasn't wealthy by magazine standards, but he possessed a wisdom that universities cannot teach. He said, "Son, if I waited until I felt perfect before planting my fields, I'd never harvest anything." Think about that. The farmer doesn't negotiate with the season. He doesn't say, "Maybe next year." He plants, he works, he waters, he waits, and life rewards movement, not intention. Movement, the tragedy is that most people spend their entire lives collecting intentions. I intend to lose weight. I intend to write a book. I intend to start investing. I intend to repair my relationships. I intend to become successful. Intentions have become the world's most crowded cemetery. Dreams buried before they ever breathed. Let me tell you something. The distance between your current life and your future life is not measured in years. It is measured in actions. Tiny actions. Repeated consistently, because life doesn't suddenly transform. It quietly compounds. One decision, one habit, one morning, one conversation, one uncomfortable choice. Until one day, people look at you and say, "You got lucky." They never saw the thousands of ordinary decisions that built the extraordinary result. Think about this for a moment. A river can carve through solid rock, not because it's stronger, because it never stops flowing. Consistency defeats intensity. Action defeats talent. Movement defeats fear. Most people have the order completely backward. They believe they need motivation before they move. But motivation is often the reward of movement. Have you ever noticed that? The hardest part of exercising is putting on your shoes. The hardest part of writing is opening the document. The hardest part of making the phone call is dialing the first number. After that, momentum begins working for you. Nature understands momentum. Snowballs understand momentum. Businesses understand momentum. Relationships understand momentum. Your life understands momentum. But your mind loves comfort. Your mind will invent reasons. It will tell you that today isn't ideal. It will remind you of your failures. It will compare you to someone 10 years ahead. It will whisper, "What if you fail?" Rarely does it ask, "What if you become everything you're capable of becoming?" Here's what most people don't understand. Fear isn't trying to protect your future. Fear is trying to preserve your present. Your brain loves familiarity, even when familiarity hurts. That's why some people stay in jobs they hate, stay in relationships that drain them, stay trapped in habits that slowly destroy their confidence, because familiar pain often feels safer than unfamiliar possibility. Think about that. People choose predictable suffering over uncertain growth. Not because they lack intelligence, because they haven't learned to act before they feel ready. I learned something years ago. There was a young man who attended one of my seminars. After everyone left, he stayed behind. His shoulders were heavy. His eyes carried disappointment. He said, I've spent 15 years preparing for the life I want. I smiled. Then I asked him one question. What have you actually started? Silence. Preparation had become his hiding place. He wasn't preparing, he was postponing. There is a difference. Preparation builds confidence. Perfectionism builds excuses. One prepares to begin. The other prepares to avoid beginning. Be careful. The line between wisdom and procrastination can become invisible. Some people spend 5 years researching a business they could have started in 5 weeks. Some people spend 10 years waiting for confidence that only action can create. Some people spend their entire youth waiting for the perfect opportunity, then spend adulthood wondering where time disappeared. Time never disappears. It simply obeys the people willing to use it. Imagine two people standing at the edge of a mountain. One spends all day calculating every possible risk. The other carefully prepares, then begins climbing. Neither knows exactly what will happen, but only one has a chance of reaching the summit. Life rewards climbers, not spectators. Don't misunderstand me. Thinking has value. Planning has value. Wisdom has value. But there comes a moment when another hour of thinking produces less value than 5 minutes of action. That moment arrives much earlier than most people realize. Let me tell you something. The world is filled with brilliant people who never became remarkable because they confused knowledge with progress. Knowledge is potential. Action is transformation. Reading about discipline isn't discipline. Watching motivational videos isn't discipline. Talking about your dreams isn't discipline. Discipline begins the moment your body obeys your decision instead of your emotions. That is where your new life starts. Your emotions are wonderful servants, terrible leaders. If you only act when you feel inspired, your success will always depend on the weather inside your mind. Some mornings you'll feel unstoppable. Other mornings you'll feel empty. The disciplined person doesn't ask, "How do I feel?" They ask, "What needs to be done?" Then they do it again and again and again. One day people call it greatness. But greatness was simply consistency wearing work clothes. Think about this for a moment. Imagine a man placing one brick every single day. Just one. People laugh. One brick? What difference can that make? But he returns tomorrow, another brick, next week, another brick, next month, another brick. Years later, there stands a magnificent house. The crowd admires the building. Few respect the brick. Yet the house exists because someone respected today's brick when no one else did. Your habits are today's bricks. Your future is tomorrow's house. Don't underestimate ordinary days. Ordinary days quietly become extraordinary lives. Here's what most people don't understand. Regret grows silently. Failure hurts immediately. Regret hurts forever. Failure teaches. Regret haunts. Failure says, "Try again." Regret whispers, "What if?" And what if is one of the heaviest sentences a human being can carry. Imagine reaching 80 years old, looking back, seeing not only what you did, but everything you almost did, the business that never opened, the song that never got written, the apology never spoken, the love never expressed, the opportunity never accepted. Not because you couldn't, because you kept thinking that is expensive. More expensive than failure, because failure gives you another chance. Regret steals tomorrow while replaying yesterday. Life is generous with second chances. But it is not generous with unlimited time. Time is always moving, whether you move with it or not. Every sunrise asks the same question. What will you do today? Not, what will you imagine? Not, what will you wish? What will you do? I remember hearing about a woman who wanted to learn piano. For 20 years she delayed. Too busy, too tired, too old, too many responsibilities. Then one birthday she finally started. After her first lesson she cried, not because she couldn't play, because she realized she could have started 20 years earlier. How many dreams are waiting behind one uncomfortable first step? Nobody knows because most people never take it. You see, success has a strange sense of humor. It hides extraordinary rewards behind ordinary actions. Wake up early, write another chapter, save another dollar, practice another hour, make another call, walk another mile, say one more encouraging word, listen instead of complain, show up again. It never looks dramatic while you're doing it, only afterward. Only after enough days stacked together. People admire the result. They rarely admire the repetition that produced it. That's why the crowd remains the crowd, because repetition isn't exciting. Results are born from repetition. Let me tell you something. Your identity is not created by your goals. It is created by your repeated actions. If you keep promises to yourself, you begin trusting yourself. Self-trust becomes confidence. Confidence becomes courage. Courage becomes opportunity. Opportunity becomes achievement. Achievement becomes a new identity. Notice where it started, not with achievement, with keeping one small promise. I said I'd walk today, so I walked. I said I'd study, so I studied. I said I'd stop making excuses, so I stopped talking and started moving. Small victories educate your subconscious. Every promise kept tells your mind, I am someone who finishes. That belief becomes priceless. Because once your identity changes, your behavior follows naturally. Most people try changing behavior without changing identity. They say, I want to exercise. Instead say, I am someone who honors my body. They say, I want to save money. Instead say, I am someone who creates freedom. They say, I want confidence. Instead become someone who acts despite uncertainty. Because courage is not the absence of fear. It is movement while fear is still speaking. Think about that. Every courageous person you've admired was afraid. They simply refused to let fear vote. Fear can ride in the car. It just can't touch the steering wheel. And the fascinating thing is that fear becomes quieter every mile you travel. Not because it disappears, because your experience becomes louder than your imagination. Experience has a voice. Excuses have a voice too. The question is, which one have you been listening to? Because every day you are rehearsing either courage or hesitation. Every decision strengthens one of those muscles. And muscles grow through repetition. And here's something that took me years to understand. Every time you hesitate, you are training your mind to hesitate again. Your brain is always learning. It doesn't only remember what you accomplish. It remembers what you repeatedly allow. If every difficult decision ends with you saying, maybe tomorrow, then tomorrow becomes your favorite hiding place. And tomorrow is dangerous, not because tomorrow doesn't exist, because tomorrow keeps wearing a different date. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. Next month quietly becomes another year. Then one day you wake up wondering why your life looks exactly the same as it did 5 years ago. Life didn't stop moving. You did. Let me tell you something. Motion creates clarity. Stillness creates imagination. And imagination, when it is disconnected from action, often creates fear. Think about a child learning to ride a bicycle. The child doesn't attend a seminar about balance. The child doesn't spend 6 months reading books on bicycle mechanics. The child climbs onto the bicycle, falls, gets back up, falls again, cries, logs. Learns every scrape is a lesson, every wobble is education, every attempt rewires confidence. Now imagine if that child had the mind of an adult. I don't know if I'm ready. What if I embarrass myself? What if people laugh? What if I fall? That child might never ride at all. Isn't it amazing? The very questions that seem intelligent can quietly become the barriers to extraordinary living. Here's what most people don't understand. Embarrassment lasts a moment. Regret can last a lifetime. People are so afraid of looking foolish for 5 minutes that they settle for feeling disappointed for 50 years. Don't let temporary discomfort write your permanent story. I remember meeting a man who spent nearly 30 years working in a factory. Every morning he woke before sunrise. Every evening he came home exhausted. There was nothing wrong with honest work. Honest work builds character. But deep inside, he carried another dream. He wanted to open a small woodworking shop. He had incredible talent, beautiful hands, creative vision. People admired the furniture he built in his garage. Friends encouraged him. His family believed in him. But every year he had another reason. The economy isn't right. My children are still young. I need a little more savings. I'll wait until things settle down. Life never settled down. Then one afternoon, the factory announced it was closing. 30 years of certainty disappeared in one meeting. When I spoke with him afterward, he didn't cry because he lost the job. He cried because he realized he had spent decades waiting for security that never truly existed. That day, he finally opened the woodworking shop. Do you know what surprised him the most? Not the success, not the customers, not the income. What surprised him was discovering that the courage he had been searching for wasn't waiting somewhere in the future. It had been waiting inside the first step all along. The first customer taught him something. The second customer taught him more. The 100th customer made him someone entirely different. Experience gave him what overthinking never could. Think about this for a moment. Life rewards participation, not observation. There are people who know everything about success. They've watched every video, read every book, highlighted every page, taken perfect notes, yet they remain exactly where they started. Then another person with half the knowledge begins, makes mistakes, learns quickly, adjusts, improves, keeps moving. 5 years later, the beginner becomes the expert. Knowledge grows when it is exercised. Unused knowledge becomes intellectual decoration. It's like owning a gym membership and never walking inside. Potential means nothing without movement. Let me ask you a question. How many opportunities have walked past your front door while you were still trying to make the perfect decision? You see, opportunities rarely arrive wearing a name tag. They often look like inconvenience, extra work, temporary uncertainty, responsibility, learning, risk. Most people reject opportunities because they expected them to feel comfortable. Opportunity almost never feels comfortable. Comfort protects the present. Opportunity stretches the future. The greatest versions of yourself are always waiting on the other side of inconvenience. I learned something years ago from watching birds. Have you ever noticed how a mother bird teaches her young to fly? She doesn't hold motivational meetings. She doesn't promise that everything will be easy. Eventually, she nudges them toward the edge. From the perspective of the young bird, it probably feels cruel. It probably feels terrifying. Everything inside that little bird wants to stay in the nest. The nest is warm, safe, predictable. But nests were built for beginning, not for staying. And some of you have built beautiful nests, comfortable routines, comfortable excuses, comfortable limitations. You've decorated your comfort zone so beautifully that you've forgotten it was never meant to become your permanent address. The nest that once protected you can eventually imprison you. Growth always asks for movement. Always, never once has life whispered, become extraordinary without changing. Transformation has a price. The question isn't whether you'll pay. The question is what you'll pay. You'll either pay the price of discipline or the price of regret. Discipline is expensive today. Regret is expensive forever. Choose carefully. Here's what most people don't understand. Discipline actually becomes easier. Excuses become heavier. Every excuse you carry adds another invisible weight to your shoulders. I could have. I should have. I almost did. Those sentences become emotional baggage. Meanwhile, discipline gets lighter because habits eventually become identity. The first morning you wake up early is difficult. The 50th morning feels natural. The first workout hurts. The 100th workout becomes part of who you are. The first difficult conversation feels impossible. Later, you become someone who tells the truth with courage. Your life changes the moment repetition changes your identity. That's why I tell people, don't chase motivation, build rituals. Motivation visits. Rituals stay. Motivation is like sunshine. Wonderful, but unpredictable. Rituals are like the sunrise. They return whether you feel emotional or not. Imagine brushing your teeth. You don't wake up negotiating. You don't ask yourself if you're inspired. You simply do it. Why? Because repetition removed the decision. Now imagine if excellence became just as automatic. Imagine if reading every day stopped feeling like work. Imagine if exercising stopped requiring debate. Imagine if gratitude became your natural language. Imagine if keeping promises to yourself became your normal behavior. Your future wouldn't depend on occasional bursts of inspiration. It would be built by automatic excellence. That's the hidden power of habits. They quietly eliminate resistance. And resistance is where so many dreams die. Let me tell you something. The world celebrates giant breakthroughs. Life is usually transformed by invisible improvements. 1% today, another percent tomorrow, a better conversation, a wiser decision, a stronger morning, a calmer response, a healthier meal, a chapter instead of television, 10 minutes of practice instead of 10 minutes of scrolling. People underestimate tiny improvements because they judge today instead of trajectory. A plane leaving the runway changes its direction by only a few degrees. At first, the difference is invisible. Hours later, it lands in an entirely different country. Your daily choices work exactly the same way. Small adjustments, massive destinations. Never underestimate direction. Speed matters less than direction. I have met people running faster toward the wrong life than others walking steadily toward the right one. Think about that. Some people are climbing ladders that are leaning against the wrong wall. They are exhausted, buzzy productive, but not purposeful. Action is powerful, but meaningful action is transformational. That's why you must ask yourself every morning, is what I'm doing taking me closer to the person I want to become? Not simply, am I busy? Busy people fill calendars. Purposeful people build lives. There is a difference. One creates activity. The other creates legacy. And here's another lesson that changed my own thinking. Stop asking whether the task is easy. Ask whether the life you want is worth the effort. Because every meaningful achievement demands an exchange. You exchange comfort for growth, entertainment for education, convenience for capability, excuses for ownership, weakness for repetition. Nobody escapes the exchange. Even doing nothing has a cost. Every decision is making an investment. The question is whether you're investing in your future or financing your excuses. I once watched an old craftsman carve a block of wood into something extraordinary. For hours, all I saw were small cuts, tiny movements, spotted her hands, nothing dramatic. I finally asked him, "How do you know exactly where to cut?" He smiled and said, "I don't create the masterpiece. I simply remove everything that doesn't belong." That sentence stayed with me. Because perhaps your greatest challenge isn't adding something new to your life. Perhaps it's removing what no longer belongs. The excuse that has lived with you for years. The habit that steals your mornings. The people who feed your doubts instead of your dreams. The endless comparison that drains your confidence. The voice inside your head that keeps introducing you to the person you used to be instead of the person you're becoming. Sometimes growth isn't about becoming more. Sometimes it's about carrying less. Less fear, less hesitation, less approval seeking, less waiting, less overthinking. Because underneath all of that, there has always been someone stronger trying to emerge. Someone more courageous. Someone more disciplined. Someone who has been knocking on the inside of your life, hoping that one day you'll stop asking for permission and simply begin acting. And that person has built one decision at a time. Not the spectacular decisions everyone applauds. The quiet ones nobody notices. The decision to wake up when the alarm rings instead of bargaining for 10 more minutes. The decision to finish what you started when nobody is watching. The decision to speak with integrity when a lie would be easier. The decision to keep learning after everyone else has become comfortable. Because those quiet moments are never really quiet. They are shaping your character. And character has a remarkable way of showing up long before success does. Success simply reveals what character has been building all along. So, the next time your mind begins negotiating with your future, the next time it starts offering another reason to delay, another excuse to wait for the perfect conditions, another promise that tomorrow will somehow be different without you becoming different. Listen carefully to that conversation, because in that moment, you are standing at one of the smallest moments that can produce one of the biggest changes in your life. It won't look dramatic. There will be no music, no applause, no audience cheering your decision. Just you, your thoughts, your excuses, your possibilities, and one simple choice. Me or remain. Let me tell you something. Your future is quietly watching what you decide in moments like these. Not because destiny is mysterious, because habits are. People think their lives are changed by huge decisions. Sometimes they are, but more often, your life bends in a different direction because of one ordinary choice, repeated long enough. That's how mountains are climbed. That's how books are written. That's how businesses are built. That's how marriages become stronger. That's how confidence grows. One ordinary choice, repeated until it becomes extraordinary. Think about this for a moment. A sculptor doesn't strike marble once and expect a masterpiece. Thousands of small strikes. Intentional. Sometimes the stone appears unchanged. But inside, every strike is weakening what no longer belongs. Your daily efforts work exactly the same way. There will be days when you feel like nothing is happening. You'll study, and you won't feel smarter. You'll exercise, and the mirror won't seem different. You'll save money, and the bank account will still look small. You'll practice your craft, and nobody will notice. Those are the days that separate dreamers from builders, because dreamers need evidence before they continue. Builders understand that evidence often arrives after persistence. Here's what most people don't understand. Nature rewards patience. The seed disappears before it appears. You bury it in darkness for days. Nothing. Weeks. Still nothing. If someone judged the seed by what they could see on the surface, they would assume nothing was happening. But underground, life is organizing itself. Roots are growing before fruit appears. Strength is developing before beauty becomes visible. And perhaps that's exactly where you are. Maybe you've been working, learning, changing, showing up, fighting battles no one knows about. Maybe you've been wondering if your effort matters, because the results haven't arrived yet. Don't confuse invisible with impossible. Some of the most important growth in your life happens where nobody can applaud it. Character grows underground. Discipline grows underground. Integrity grows underground. Patience grows underground. Then one day, the visible life catches up with the invisible work. People call it overnight success. You smile because you remember all the mornings no one witnessed. I learned something years ago from a mentor who changed my perspective forever. He said, most people quit one chapter before the breakthrough. One chapter, think about that. How tragic would it be to spend years building strength only to stop because the finish line was hidden around the next corner? Life rarely announces how close you are. It simply asks whether you trust the process. There was a young woman I met who dreamed of becoming a nurse. She failed the entrance exam twice. Her relatives told her to choose something easier. Some even laughed. You've already tried. You've already failed. This isn't for you. Imagine if she had believed them. Instead, she studied every morning before work. She carried flashcards everywhere she went. Lunch breaks became classrooms. Bus rides became opportunities. Late nights became investments. On her third attempt, she passed. Years later, she told me something I'll never forget. She said, "The exam wasn't the hardest part. Becoming the kind of person who refused to quit. That was the real victory." Do you hear the wisdom in that? Sometimes the goal is simply the excuse life uses to transform you. Maybe the business isn't the greatest reward. Maybe becoming disciplined enough to build it is. Maybe the marathon isn't the greatest achievement. Maybe becoming someone who honors commitments is. Maybe the promotion isn't the real prize. Maybe developing leadership, patience, and responsibility is. Success changes your circumstances. Growth changes your identity. And identity outlasts every achievement. Here's what most people don't understand. Winning can be dangerous if your character hasn't grown to match it. Because success amplifies who you already are. Money doesn't create discipline. It reveals it. Influence doesn't create humility. It reveals it. Opportunity doesn't create responsibility. It reveals it. That's why the work you do before success matters more than the applause after success. Build the person. The results eventually follow. Too many people chase outcomes while neglecting identity. It's like trying to harvest fruit from a tree whose roots have never been strengthened. Strong roots, strong storms, weak roots. One difficult season ends everything. So ask yourself, are you chasing applause or are you building foundations? Foundations aren't exciting. Nobody drives past a construction site and admires the concrete buried underground, yet every skyscraper depends upon what nobody sees. The taller your dream, the deeper your foundation must become. Think about an oak tree. For years it appears to grow slowly. People become impatient. Then decades later it stands firm while smaller plants are uprooted by every strong wind. Why? Because time was spent building depth. Our world celebrates speed. Nurture celebrates strength. Choose carefully which teacher you follow. I remember visiting a small village where an elderly craftsman repaired watches. His shop was tiny. No expensive furniture, no flashy signs, just a simple wooden table, tiny tools, quiet concentration. I watched him spend nearly an hour adjusting one tiny spring inside an old pocket watch. Finally, I asked, "Why spend so much time on something so small?" "Without looking up," he answered. "Small things decide whether the whole watch keeps time." What a lesson. How many lives fall apart because people ignore the small things. 5 extra minutes in bed, 1 skipped workout, 1 broken promise, 1 unnecessary lie, 1 evening wasted, 1 negative conversation repeated every day. Tiny decisions, huge consequences. But the opposite is also true. 1 page read, 1 kind word spoken, 1 healthy meal, 1 courageous phone call, 1 hour of focused work, tiny victories, life-changing consequences. Never insult small beginnings. Everything meaningful begins small. A forest begins with 1 seed. A family begins with 2 people. A movement begins with 1 voice. A legacy begins with 1 decision. And that decision usually feels insignificant in the moment. Here's another lesson I've carried for years. Your life moves in the direction of your standards, not your wishes. Standards, everyone wishes for better health. Not everyone has standards for eating. Everyone wishes for financial freedom. Not everyone has standards for spending. Everyone wishes for confidence. Not everyone has standards for keeping promises to themselves. Raise your standards, and your behavior begins searching for ways to match them. Lower your standards, and excuses immediately become acceptable. Never negotiate with the standards that protect your future. When you begin bargaining with excellence, mediocrity doesn't arrive all at once. It arrives quietly, 1 compromise, then another, then another. until one day you barely recognize the person you promised yourself you would become. Let me ask you something. What are you repeatedly tolerating that your future self will one day resent? Think about that. Because what you tolerate today becomes what you experience tomorrow. If you tolerate laziness, you'll experience limitation. If you tolerate dishonesty, you'll experience broken trust. If you tolerate negativity, you'll experience smaller possibilities. But if you tolerate temporary discomfort, you'll experience long-term growth. That is one of life's greatest exchanges. Temporary sacrifice, permanent expansion. The remarkable thing about disciplined people isn't that they enjoy difficult things more than everyone else. It's that they've learned to connect today's effort with tomorrow's freedom. Most people only see today's discomfort. Disciplined people see tomorrow's reward. Perspective changes endurance. A mother stays awake all night, caring for her child, because love changes the meaning of sacrifice. An athlete trains through exhaustion because purpose changes the meaning of pain. An entrepreneur works when others are sleeping because vision changes the meaning of effort. Purpose gives suffering direction. Without purpose, every inconvenience feels unbearable. With purpose, even hardship becomes meaningful. That's why you must protect your vision. Not because dreams are fragile, because distractions are relentless. The world will constantly invite you to trade your future for immediate comfort. Another hour of scrolling, another excuse, another delay, another reason to wait until Monday, until next month, until next year. Life keeps asking the same question in different forms. What are you willing to become today? Not next year, today, because today is the only place where tomorrow is actually built. Yesterday is instruction. Tomorrow is possibility. Today is construction. Brick by brick, choice by choice, habit by habit, moment by moment. And somewhere, perhaps closer than you realize, there is another version of you waiting to emerge. A version that no longer asks permission from fear, no longer bargains with excuses, no longer measures every opportunity by comfort, but instead measures it by growth. That version of you doesn't wake up wondering whether motivation has arrived. That version wakes up with a decision already made. The alarm rings and the feet touch the floor. The opportunity appears and the hand reaches for it. The challenge arrives, and instead of asking, why is this happening to me? The question becomes, who is this challenge inviting me to become? Because once you begin asking better questions, your mind starts searching for better answers. And when your mind begins searching differently, your actions quietly begin changing in ways you never thought possible until one ordinary morning. Because one ordinary morning becomes the day your ordinary life begins to disappear. Years from now, people may look at you and say, you changed. They'll think it happened in a moment. But you'll know the truth. You'll remember this decision, this day, this promise, this quiet moment when you finally stopped waiting for your life to begin and realized it had been waiting for you all along. Let me leave you with something I hope you never forget. One day, every single one of us will stand face to face with the person we could have become. Not the person our circumstances created, not the person our excuses protected. The person our courage was capable of creating. And in that moment, there will be no one else to blame. No economy, no childhood, no bad luck, no difficult boss, no unfair opportunity. There will only be one question echoing through your soul. Did you become everything you were capable of becoming? That question cannot be answered with intentions. It cannot be answered with dreams. It cannot be answered with talent. It can only be answered with action. Because your destiny is never built by what you planned. It is built by what you repeatedly did. Remember this. Discipline will ask for a little from you every day. Regret will ask for everything from you one day. Choose your price. The future is not coming to rescue you. The future is watching you. It is taking notes on every excuse you accept, every promise you keep, every morning you rise, every time you choose courage over comfort. Your future is being written right now, not tomorrow, not next Monday, not next year. Right now, every heartbeat is asking you the same question. What will you do with the life you've been given? Believe in yourself before the world has a reason to. Show up before you feel ready. Take the first step before you can see the entire staircase. Trust the process before the results arrive. Keep your word when no one is watching. Keep moving when no one is clapping. Keep building when no one believes. Because one day, the life you prayed for will become the life you live. And on that day, you'll understand that it was never one giant decision that changed everything. It was thousands of small decisions made by someone who refused to quit. So, when you leave here today, don't just feel inspired. Become different. Walk differently. Think differently. Choose differently. Live differently. When fear whispers, wait. Answer with action. When doubt whispers, you can't. Answer with effort. When comfort whispers, tomorrow, answer with today. Starting today, let your habits become louder than your excuses. Let your discipline become stronger than your emotions. Let your purpose become greater than your fear. And let your actions tell a story so powerful that years from now, your children, your family, your friends, and even strangers will look at your life and realize what is possible when an ordinary person makes an extraordinary decision to never stop growing. The clock is moving whether you move or not. The days are passing whether you use them or waste them. The life you dream about is not hiding from you. It is waiting for the version of you who is willing to earn it. So stand up, take the step, make the call, drop the page, start the business, learn the skill, repair the relationship, take responsibility. Honor your promise, trust your potential. And from this day forward, whenever your mind says, think, let your heart, your discipline, and your future answer with words that will change your life forever. Don't think, just do.